Hi, thank you for viewing our presentation on the Central Grays Harbor Regional Fire Authority. I'm Tom Hubbard. I'm the Fire Chief of the Aberdeen-Hoquiam Fire Departments. Presenting alongside me today is Corey Schmid, the Finance Director for the City of Hoquiam, and Assistant Chief Matt Miller for the Hoquiam Fire Department. I want to provide a little bit of background. We have a PowerPoint to go through. We're hoping that we answer the majority of your questions. At the end, we'll have contact information. So if Corey, you'll bring up the PowerPoint, we will start working through that. I just want to thank everybody for their patience with this. We did hold 2 public outreaches, but with the ongoing COVID pandemic, we decided this is the best way to look out for the safety of the public and our personnel. So we're trying all avenues. So a little bit of background on the Central Grays Harbor Regional Fire Authority Plan. August of 2018, the City of Aberdeen-Hoquiam merged administrative services. The Fire Chief of Aberdeen and Assistant Chief offered services to the City of Hoquiam, and we've been doing that since August of 2018. In September of 2018, both cities contracted with Emergency Service Consulting International to conduct a feasibility study on the potential to merge both fire agencies to improve services and gain efficiencies. In October of 2019, that study was completed, and it was presented to a joint Aberdeen and Hoquiam City Council meeting as well as the public. It was well received, and a very in-depth feasibility study was prepared and approved. That study is available on the City of Aberdeen and City of Hoquiam websites. If you search and look for feasibility study, it'll give you a very in-depth look at both fire agencies, where we are currently and where we hope to go. In January of 2020, both cities again contracted with ESCI to form a regional fire authority planning committee. Per RCW, a committee needs to be formed to move forward with that process. That process lasts until July of 2021, where the plan was adopted by the Regional Fire Authority Planning Committee and approved by both city councils. That plan is also available on the City of Aberdeen and City of Hoquiam website for your review. The Central Grays Harbor Authority Plan details in 10 sections what will make up an RFA. So you ask, what is an RFA? It is essentially a special purpose district, in this case, the boundaries of the City of Aberdeen and the City of Hoquiam, established by the voters to provide fire and emergency medical services. And that's a very key distinction. The Central Grays Harbor Regional Fire Authority's sole mission will be the provision of fire protection and emergency medical services within those boundaries and contracted areas. It is governed by a 5-member panel, 3 elected, 1 from Aberdeen, 1 from Hoquiam, 1 at large, and then 2 appointed from the City of Aberdeen and the City of Hoquiam councils to comprise the 5-member governing board. Funding will be discussed later in this presentation. And as I mentioned before, the plan has been created and approved by both the committee and the councils, with the next step going before you, the voters, determine if this is how you want us to provide for your safety in the future. You can go to the next slide, Corey. So why a regional fire authority? So the Emergency Service Consulting feasibility study did a very in-depth look at our current capabilities, our current staffing, our current operations, policies, and procedures. And they determined, and is outlined on page 41, that neither department alone or combined is currently capable of meeting the current call volume and job requirements or looking to the future. The study proved kind of what we knew, but that we're struggling to keep up and to be proactive in what we're doing. And we'll get more to that later. But the combined call volumes alone in 2020 were 8,000 705 calls, and that's very high calls for a fire agency. We use Graham Fire as an example. In 2020, their call volume was 7,344, and they're operating with nearly 100 firefighters out of 5 stations, and we're operating with 36 in Aberdeen, 21 in Hoquiam out of 4 stations. So what we're looking for is to improve our ability to manage that type of call volume. EMS and fire calls are very time sensitive and labor intensive. For EMS calls, a very fast and efficient response equals lives saved. And for fire calls, a fast and efficient response is life saves and property salvage. Those are our 2 key benchmarks, and that is our sole goal in moving forward with this plan. Next slide. So why a regional fire authority? As covered in the feasibility study and in the RFA plan and in the pamphlets that we've been providing in our other public outreach, economies of scale can be gained. We can consolidate our vehicle repair and maintenance, our purchasing. It equalizes the tax base across the entire jurisdiction of Aberdeen and Hoquiam. Myrtle Street no longer exists. It'll be the current city boundaries of Aberdeen and Hoquiam comprise our response and jurisdictional area. Proactive outreach, we touched on that earlier. Currently, both fire departments are very reactive. A call for service comes in, we respond, we mobilize our resources, and we mitigate the hazard. And we're very efficient at that. What we're missing is our ability to be proactive in the areas of public education, fire prevention, disaster prevention, all these areas that are key to improving the health and safety of our constituents can be achieved by increasing our staffing and our ability to meet those challenges with an RFA. NFPA 1710 is a national guideline for staffing. Currently, we are not meeting that guideline. Under the proposed RFA and our operational response standards, we will be closer to meeting NFPA 1710 with 3 personnel on a fire engine, moving closer to that standard of 4 on a fire engine. By pooling our resources together, we'll be more effective in handling emergencies safely for the public, definitely improve safety for our firefighters. We'll be able to move quickly through an incident and get back into service faster by having more resources on the initial response. Some of the areas that we hope to enhance is our fire investigation team, possibly putting a peak demand medical unit in service. Specialized response teams are a goal for the future, such things as confined space rescue, water rescue, trench rescue, all the things that currently we are unable to do. A big part of this is sustainability for our personnel and for our service. Right now, as proved in the feasibility study, our personnel are running so many calls that we're seeing burnout of personnel, we're losing personnel, and by moving forward with this RFA, we've already seen that there's interest in our agency as this possibly comes to be with improved working conditions, the ability to advance, the ability to provide additional services. So this is a big attractor for us for recruiting personnel and retaining personnel. Next slide. So we have been asked, do the fire departments already work together? And yes, we've worked together for many years operationally. Myrtle Street, as far as we are concerned operationally, does not exist. We go back and forth consistently on mutual aid and automatic aid for fires. And so we've proven operationally that this is a strong system. This improves what we're doing because together we are able to provide a better service. What we are missing is the administrative support and everything else that then supports that operational outreach. Currently, we have a couple of purchasing avenues. We have different vehicle maintenance programs. We have different training programs. All these things would be combined into one program that is way more efficient and is all designed to support the operational policies and procedures that we have in place. So I'm going to a little bit more, and then I'm going to hand this over to Matt. So both agencies, as part of the RFA planning process, have developed guidelines and policies for us to work together. We've enhanced our response to structure fires, all with the goal of improving the safety of our community and the people we serve. So we've proven that that part is working. As I've mentioned, we are confident that combining into one RFA will help with recruitment and retention of personnel. And our response procedures are designed to support the entire RFA jurisdictional boundaries in a sustainable way. I'm now going to hand you off to Assistant Chief Matt Miller, who is going to discuss more of these in detail.
Thank you. As Chief Hubbard said, my name is Matt Miller, Assistant Chief with the Hoquiam Fire Department, and I am going to carry on our presentation here. Here we have a slide talking about staffing and call numbers, and you could see where in 2020, the department call volume for Aberdeen was a little over 5,400, and Aberdeen was a little over 3,200 for a combined call volume of 8,720. We're doing that, as he said, with a combined 57 people. When you do the math and average it out, we are running 160 to 170 calls a piece per firefighter per year, which is a very high number for firefighters to run per year. Looking down here, you can see comparatively to Graham Fire and Rescue, with the 97 career firefighters they have and the 7,344 calls, they are running approximately 75 calls per year per firefighter. And Aberdeen and Hoquiam combined are running approximately 155 to 160 calls per year per firefighter. Our firefighters are working very hard to maintain the level of service that we do now while continuing to run a large number of calls. You can see on the bottom, on the overlapping calls, for 2020, Hoquiam was running about 28% overlapping calls. So that meant we had 2 or more calls going on at the same time. Aberdeen is at 43%. So out of all those calls, we are running more and more calls at the same time, which just limits and strains our resources even further. This is why in the plan, we're asking for 6 additional firefighters to help lower that strain and spread that call volume out across more firefighters, make it a little bit easier and give us a more robust system across the board, so that when that 3rd and 4th call come in and it's a house on fire or a cardiac arrest, we can provide the appropriate amount of personnel needed for that call. Next slide. So, as Chief Hubbard said, the Aberdeen and Hoquiam Fire Departments have been working together for years with automatic and mutual aid agreements for many, many years. And we have helped each other back and forth across Myrtle for as long as anybody can remember. However, again, with the larger call volume going on and the multiple calls going on, sometimes we end up with a lower amount of responders than is desired. So, on the screen here, you have the Wheeler Avenue fire, which is a Hoquiam fire. And a little background to this, just prior to this fire, the Hoquiam headquarters medic unit went en route to an aid call to Hump Tulips. So out of our 5 on duty, that now reduced us down to 3. And that leaves our headquarters captain alone with the fire engine. The headquarters captain responded to this structure fire that came in as a porch fire and got on scene to this. That's very stressful for one person to try to come up and pull up on this and attempt to do anything, as in doing a 360 to evaluate all the hazards and what's going on, what they need to do, who's going to do it, and how. In this particular fire, en route, there was an update that there was possibly somebody inside. Luckily, there was nobody inside. They had all gotten out, but that just added to the stress of that headquarters captain. The kicker to this particular call is that headquarters captain, this was her very first structure fire as the headquarters captain. She handled it very well. She had the east side engine coming from Station 2 and an Aberdeen engine. She thought far enough ahead to request more resources from Aberdeen, and they came, but very sketchy circumstances showing up to a fire by yourself and seeing this with the possibility of somebody being inside. According to state law, we cannot perform a rescue unless we have 3 people on scene. That means 2 people can go in and 1 has to stay outside. We cannot do it with just 1. Luckily, the people got out. So on the other side, we have the 4th Street fire in Aberdeen. The background on this is the Aberdeen fire crews were attempting to conduct some training at their Southside station. While they were conducting that, an aid call went out. And then they also had an MVA wreck just outside of town on Highway 12 or 8. Their units went out there. They had an engine, a medic unit, the battalion chief. While they were all out there on a pretty significant car wreck, this kitchen fire came in. Luckily, the battalion chief was able to clear himself and the engine as quickly as they could and showed up to this kitchen fire. In the end, everybody was out, everybody was safe. It was confined to the kitchen, but a couple minutes more, and this could have been a completely totaled house. With the amount of calls and the multiple calls, crews are being stretched to their limit, and we're not always able to provide the best resources that need to be brought for each fire. So these are 2 examples of pre-operational response. We're going to go to the next slide. And this is an RFA response. So in January of 2021, myself and Assistant Chief Dave Golding and officers from Aberdeen and Hoquiam all got together and decided to implement the proposed RFA response plan, not in its complete stages, but as much as we possibly could, which increased our initial response from either side for a call in either city. And on my left, we have the 11th Street fire in Hoquiam. This was the very first call that tested this system. It wasn't 100% perfect, but it was very, very well ran. As you can see, this is a few minutes after we were on scene. We have fire venting from the upstairs. But with all the additional people we were able to get and the appropriate amount of responders, we had multiple hose lines out. We had ladders to the 2nd floor. We had an attack crew. We had exposure crews. We were able to evacuate the nearby buildings, and we got this fire out and under control in a very short amount of time and limited it to just the 1 room that it was in, with a little bit of water and smoke damage throughout the rest of the house. The takeaway from this is we did it very quickly. We did it very safely. We weren't burning people out. We had enough firefighters on scene to perform all the essential functions that need to be done to protect all the neighbors' property, and fight the fire as quickly as possible, all while providing good firefighter safety. The next example is the Fleet Street fire in Aberdeen. This one has happened more recently. It is not the 2nd or 3rd fire that we've actually ran this on, but it's the most recent. And we are fine tuning our responses as we go. And in this particular case, there was a residence right behind the errands on the east side of town. And if you're familiar with the area, it's a very narrow alley. There's not a lot of room to work back there. And this is what the first in engine shows up to. With this, the initial officer called for a 2nd alarm, which called in the 2nd Hoquiam ambulance and engine. And the crews were able to make a attack, knock this fire down, prevent exposure, make sure all the neighbors and the nearby residents were evacuated and cared for, and the fire got knocked down much quicker than if Aberdeen was solely relying on their own crews. During this fire, the combination between Aberdeen and Hoquiam, there was 3 to 4 more aid calls that were able to be handled by the on-scene officer and dispatch his ambulance crews from that point to where they needed to go in a timely manner. This RFA response that we're using here is allowing the on-scene commander to have his resources that he is aware of, where they are, what they're doing, and who he can let go to handle that next call. Because as we said in the slide before, 28 and 43% of the time, we're running multiple calls. This is letting us handle those calls with the appropriate person and people quickly and efficiently. Next slide. And now I'm going to hand it over to Corey.
Hello, I am Corey Schmidt. As the chief mentioned, I'm the finance director for the city of Hoquiam. So first off, let's start with just your regular property tax. So to be funded, or for the RFA to be funded, we would have a regular property tax levy. This would be a $1 per 1,000 of assessed valuation of your home. And so your regular property taxes wouldn't actually change. The dollar would actually be taken away from the city property taxes. So you actually won't see an increase in your regular property taxes. And this will be shown in the example on the next slide. For the EMS levy, this is 50 cents per 1,000 of assessed valuation. The benefit charge, this is based upon a fire flow resource, and it's based upon the structure size on your home, the structure size of your building on your property. So based upon your square footage. And then transport fees, this is ambulance billing. Ambulance, a utility fee. This is something that both cities are already seeing. It is your monthly availability fee that you see on your water, sewer, and storm bill. And then service contracts. These are contracts that each city has or each department has with outlying areas. Okay, so to give you an example as to what this could look like for a 1,700 square foot home with an assessed value of 150,000. Here we have listed what a resident is paying currently with this square footage and this assessed value, and then what the proposed is. So if the RFA was voted in or approved by voters, this is what property taxes would look like. So as you can see, so if you actually look at the city regular tax and the RFA basic regular tax, it equals the city regular tax for what residents or citizens are paying currently. You'll see the EMS levy there. You'll see the benefit charge there. Just remember, the benefit charge is based upon the structure size of the square footage of the building, not the assessed value of the home. And then also the ambulance utility fee. With the benefit charge, we were able to reduce the ambulance availability fee. So the monthly fee that you're seeing on your water, sewer, and storm bill, that will significantly decrease. So for a square footage home of 1,700 square feet, assessed value of 150,000, the annual increase is around $335. If anyone wants an estimate as to what this will look like for them, please feel free to call me, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to provide that estimate to you. There is also a senior citizen low income discount program for property taxes through the Grays Harbor County Assessor. This discount also applies to the benefit charge. So if you qualify for the discount on your property taxes, you will also qualify for the discount on the benefit charge. And then also, if you have a, sorry, I'm blanking. If you have a Sprinkler system, thank you. I saw Matt and Tom's eyes. If you have a sprinkler system and it is reviewed and approved by the RFA, then you will also receive a discount on that.
Okay, back to me. All right, so some of the goals for an RFA. We want to maintain the quality fire and emergency services we are providing now and get better. We feel that we provide a very good service to our citizens in both cities already, and we want to improve that, as the chief said, by looking into some other possibilities and being very proactive versus reactive, all while improving citizen and firefighter safety, whether it be on an EMS call or on a fire. Increased firefighters are going to help increase safety. We're going to provide a stable and sustainable funding. Right now, the fire departments are just one of the departments being funded throughout each city. And we're almost fighting for dollars between each city's budget. With this, we will be a sole entity with our taxing base that we can provide a more sustainable funding. We're going to improve efficiency and effectiveness in operations. So with the examples that I gave earlier, we're going to streamline the process from start to finish with a combined response and a combined operational standard and combined administrative services. We're going to just be able to maintain and increase the efficiency of our responses. And then when we're there, how effective we are with more people on a scene, whether it be a EMS call, a cardiac arrest, a car fire, a car accident, or a structure fire. We're just going to be able to be more effective and provide better services while we're on scene. More firefighters on scene are going to increase rescue and suppression efforts, like we talked about earlier. And we're just going to handle our calls more seamlessly. Currently, in order for us to handle multiple calls, and when HOQUIM gets tied up with too many calls and we have to call for Aberdeen, there's a lag between us getting the call saying we can't go and it calling for Aberdeen. We're going to take out that lag, and it's just going to be able to be handled much more seamlessly and quicker. And as the chief said earlier, minutes and seconds save lives. Promoting future growth within the organization. The chief also touched on this earlier. This is going to help with recruitment and retention. We're going to be able to provide more stepping stones for people's careers. There's going to be the options or abilities to possibly start these specialized teams that currently the harbor is lacking. And it's just going to give people a better future outlook for the organization. And we're going to provide a representative board. So it'll still be the citizens that oversee the department and how it works. This will still give a citizen input. These will be voted on by citizens of both cities, and there will be representatives from each city council there to see what's happening and how it's going to be operated. Next slide. All right, other RFAs in the state. There are currently 13 other RFAs. There was a couple other options after the study was presented to us, and a municipal fire district was one of those options. And there is no other municipal fire district in the state that has been established by law. It is authorized, but no one's ever done it. An RFA is a more tried and true method of combining two city fire departments into one. So you can see here, it's all the way over into Benton County in Eastern Washington. And we have King County has Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority, Renton and Valley Regional Fire Authorities, Pacific and Lewis County have one, Mason County has their North Mason, and in Grays Harbor County, we have the South Beach Regional Fire Authority. The planning committee that's overlooked this entire process chose the RFA way of going just because it appears and has been a proven way to put two departments together in a very good form that operationally works. And we'll move on to the next slide. And our last slide, if you have any questions, please contact any of us on there. Chief Tom Hubbard, myself, Assistant Chief Dave Golding, or Finance Director Corey Schmid. We are here to answer questions. We love to answer questions. We want to answer questions. We want to give as much information as possible to everybody. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Chief Hubbard and say thank you, everybody, for watching.
And I echo that. Thank you all very much for taking the time to review this with us. We have lots of information on our websites, and please contact us so that we can answer any questions that you have. Our ultimate goal is to provide the best service possible to the citizens we protect. We've been doing this for many, many years. Thousands of hours have gone into this study to make it the best product possible, and we would enjoy the opportunity to tell you more about it if you have questions. And with that, I thank you very much for your time.